If Singapore is so rich, why do we feel so poor? Singapore is officially one of the richest countries in the world. We have the highest concentration of millionaires. Our GDP per capita is through the roof. And globally, we are seen as the ultimate economic miracle. So why do we as Singaporeans still look at our bank account and worry when the price of chicken rice or when the price of our kopi goes up? And do you also feel that everyone around you is doing much better than you and you're just struggling to get by? So in this video, I'm going to explore the 5 reasons why we still feel poor despite living in one of the most affluent countries in the world and what we can do to improve our situation. So let's go. Reason number 1. Our salaries lagging the cost of living increase. The biggest, most obvious reason why people are feeling squeezed right now is the widening gap between how fast things are getting expensive to how fast our salary actually grows. So according to the latest Ministry of Manpower data, nominal total wages of full-time residents in Singapore has grown 4.9% last year. That's almost 5%. Sounds good on paper, right? So if you earn $5,000 a month, that will give you an extra $250 every month. But here's the catch that the news articles don't teach you. Nominal growth is an illusion. What we have to do is to look at the real wage growth after accounting for core inflation. When oil prices spike so much because of the war and when food prices go up because of food shortages, our everyday expenses will shoot up instantly, and often it is more than 5%. So basically, your 5% increment does not mean that you get $250 more of fun money. That $250 is instantly swallowed up by the 9% GST on your daily transactions, your higher electrical bills, your public transport fare hikes, and the rising cost of your everyday kopi and your cai fan. The worst thing about this discrepancy between how fast your wages are growing and how fast the cost of living is actually growing is that if it happens over time, this problem actually compounds year after year, and that gap keeps getting wider and wider. That is why we Singaporeans can sometimes still feel poor even though we have good jobs and we receive good increment every year. Now, to be fair, this is not just a Singapore problem. The cost of living crisis is a global problem that everyone is facing. It is just a more acute problem here in Singapore because everyone's impression of this country is that Singapore is very affluent. So maybe there's a sense of entitlement where we feel that we won't be affected that much. Reason number 2. Shifting goalposts. Okay, do you get the feeling that previous generations in Singapore had it easier? Like sure, cost of living was much lower then, but you could also argue that the income back then was also much lower as well. But I remember in my parents' generation, they would tell me how a family living on one single income can actually get by. They won't be living a rich, affluent lifestyle for sure, but I remember my parents telling me that they have friends who are taxi drivers and they are the sole breadwinner of the family, and they were able to pay off the HDB, send multiple kids to universities, and even have savings and have holidays at Bintan or Batam. And I remember my late mom telling me that if the other partner, which is usually the wife, if they also go to work, then they become a dual income family and that will help them save even more. These days, however, a dual income family is the bare minimum to survive. You have both the husband and wife both grinding out 50 hours work week, pooling their 2 full-time salaries together, and they still seem to be struggling just to get by. Another example of the shifting goalposts, a university degree used to be a golden ticket. If you graduate from NUS, NTU or SMU, you are set for life. That's why our parents keep insisting on us going to the university, because they saw how degree holders substantially out-earn non-degree holders. But these days, due to many reasons such as increased university placement and the use of AI, it is the university students who are most worried about their job prospects when they graduate into this uncertain job market. One last example of this shifting goalposts. In the past, to buy a house in Singapore, the maximum loan you can take is 15 years. That means after 15 years, if you pay diligently every month, you have paid off your house. Today, home loan goes as far as 25 years. Why was it extended? Well, the official reason is filled with good intentions, and that is to make it more affordable. If you can take 25 years to pay off what initially requires only 15 years, it's definitely going to be a smaller amount every month you pay because you have more time to pay it off. But is housing more affordable now with a longer loan? The sellers of these property developers, they're not stupid. The moment you can borrow more to buy something, the seller of the thing that you want to buy will naturally increase their price. You see this happening in the US education system as well, where the tuition fee continues to go up because it keeps getting easier for 18 years old to get more student loan. And right now, what I've read is that the US is considering extending home loans up to 50 years. That sounds like a terrible idea because you will never pay off your loan. And on top of what we have just discussed, we haven't even discussed on how working hours are much more longer now compared to previous generations. Because of all the technology that allows us to bring work back home, like emails or your mobile phone, we are already working longer hours than any previous generation. So longer hours, but yet we don't feel any richer. So it is normal for you to feel that the goalpost constantly gets shifted and you feel like you're always playing catch up. Now, before moving on to the 3 other reasons, I want to take a pause here because I don't just want to focus on the problems. A great life advice I got early in my career is don't be a problem identifier. Be a problem solver. We are in Singapore, one of the most resilient countries in the world. So we cannot indulge in self-pity and play the victim card because these problems are not exclusive to Singapore and it is faced globally by everyone. In this harsh economy, we have to take control of our own paths. So what can we do? Besides reskilling ourselves with higher paying, irreplaceable skills to actually improve our career prospects, we must also be diligent and consistently invest regularly so that our money has a chance to compound faster than the cost of living. In my case, I invest mostly in index fund, mainly the S&P 500 index, and that's why I've been exploring Longbridge, the sponsor of today's video. I have been exploring Longbridge for a few reasons. The first reason is their low fees, where they have lifetime zero commission for Singapore, US, and Hong Kong trades, and 90-day platform fee waivers for new customers. The second reason is that in this age of AI, I'm quite impressed to find out about their built-in AI assistant called Longbridge AI, which is designed to help retail investors organize market information, stay ahead of trends, and seize market opportunities. And lastly, they have very attractive welcome rewards, where you can get up to 5% per annum interest boost on $4,000, which is worth up to 200 Singapore dollars. In total, you can receive up to 1,470 Singapore dollars in free NVIDIA shares, option cash coupons, and platform fee coupons. The best part is that Longbridge has just added a 500 Singapore dollar deposit tier. So even if you're depositing just 500 Singapore dollars, you can still get a fractional share. So if you like my content and want to support me and kickstart your investment journey, sign up for Longbridge using my link below. Okay, let's get back to the 3 other reasons. Reason number 3, asset rich but cash poor. So now that I live here in Thailand, a lot of Thai people I meet, they have this impression that Singaporeans are very rich and very well-to-do. One of the biggest reasons why they admire Singapore is our high home ownership rates. Now, it is very well known around the world that Singapore, about 80 to 90% of its people actually own their own home. So comparing to other expensive cities like Hong Kong or London, where most people can't afford to buy their own home and they have to constantly pay increasingly higher rents, Singaporeans have it easy, right? So why do we still feel stuck? Well, the reason is also because of our property market. Growing up, our parents and our society constantly pressure and encourages us to buy our first home. They always tell us, property, you can't go wrong, and it is the ultimate investment. As a result, a massive portion of our net worth is completely locked up to our homes. And because property prices are so high, a huge chunk of our monthly salary, as well as our CPF ordinary account, goes directly into servicing your housing loan. So many Singaporeans actually own a property that has appreciated greatly. So on paper, they are very wealthy and their net worth looks amazing. But we cannot buy groceries with home equity. We cannot also pay for an unexpected medical emergency with bricks from our home, unless we take up more debt or we sell the roof over our head. And even if your property did appreciate a lot over the years and you want to cash in those gains, you don't really gain much, because after you sell your house, you need to buy another house and it's going to be equally or if not more expensive than your old one. So that's why I think a lot of Singaporeans feel stuck even though they're sitting on good values on their home. You see this asset-rich, cash-poor phenomenon happening overseas as well. I was very fortunate to visit New York once, and I visited the Chinatown because it's a very popular tourist attraction. And Chinatown is considered a decent or prime location in Manhattan, New York as well. But I noticed that many of the homes, the shops, or the buildings there can be quite run down and poorly maintained. So now I know every time I go to an affluent neighborhood and if I see a poorly maintained and run down house surrounded by very, very nice houses, I know now that the owners are probably asset rich but cash poor too. So yes, while I think it's not wrong for our parents to tell us to go buy property as soon as possible and for our government to encourage home ownership, what wasn't taught to us is the importance of liquidity. In this harsh economy, we cannot survive on paper wealth alone. We need to have liquid cash flow, which is the cash you can spend today. And unfortunately, in my own personal experience, I noticed that schools and the society in Singapore generally do not emphasize on being liquid. Reason number 4, losing face is more important than losing money. Have you ever heard your Singaporean friends and family say this? I'd rather lose money, I just cannot lose face. Okay, the reason this is happening is deeply psychological, and it is a massive problem in an affluent society that we live in, and that is lifestyle inflation driven by social comparison. Singapore is a highly compressed and dense city. Everywhere you go, you see beautiful shiny things. You walk down Orchard Road, you see luxury brands. You browse social media, you see your friends flying business class on SQ to Japan or Europe, and your colleagues are inviting you to their housewarming parties in their brand new private condo. The other thing is that Singapore is a global city and we are very connected and we attract the best talents from all around the world. So every day we interact with these very talented people and we inevitably compare ourselves to them as well. In the US, this phenomenon is called keeping up with the Jones. Jones basically refers to your neighbors. So whatever your neighbors have just bought, you want to go buy that too. I think this happens and we can't help it because we've been wired to benchmark our success against our peers. When we were kids, our parents compare our grades to our classmates. And when we're at work, our performance is actually stack ranked on a bell curve with our colleagues as well. So naturally, when it comes to money, we also compare ourselves to others, and that is when our baseline of what a normal life in Singapore actually gets more messy. Suddenly, living in a clean, functional HDB, taking the MRT, eating at the local hawker center, all of this suddenly doesn't feel like a massive win anymore. And the opposite happens where we start to feel like we are falling behind. Now, this is the worst part, so please listen carefully. This then creates a very dangerous, self-inflicted financial pain point where people start using debt or their hard-earned savings to fund a lifestyle that they cannot sustain, just to avoid losing face. So I'm now 40 years old and I know more than a few acquaintances from both school and work where they bought a very luxurious car or very expensive home with a heavy monthly loan, and now up to 60% of their take-home pay is to finance these cars or these homes. Reason number 5, the high cost of taking care of yourself. Okay, this is the 5th and final reason, so let me use 2 examples to illustrate this. Example 1, we all know that Singapore is a high-stress, high-pressure cooker. Burnout is increasingly common and work hours can be incredibly long. And because work takes up such a massive toll on our mental health, Singaporeans are forced to spend money on what I call a mental health premium. Think about it, why do we spend $30 on a weekend cafe brunch? Why do we pay for expensive gym and Pilates membership or frequently book weekend trips out to Bali or Bangkok? It is often not just out of luxury, but we do it because it's an emotional coping and escape mechanism. So in Singapore, we have to spend a large amount of our disposable income just to decompress, mentally reset, and to survive another week in the corporate jungle. The second example of why taking care of yourself is expensive in Singapore is that unlike other Western affluent nations, Singapore's economical model centers on us being self-reliant. There is no unemployment insurance or long-term welfare cushion. If you get laid off tomorrow, your income immediately goes to 0. And that's what exactly happened to me when I was laid off by Google. And by and large, I was on my own to figure out what my next job is or how am I going to protect my livelihood. Because there's no systematic safety net, I feel that Singaporeans are being forced to carry this constant stress with them. That's why even if you have a decent amount of savings, you never really feel rich because you are just one restructuring or one reorg away from financial vulnerability. And right now, that stress is compounding because if you were to get laid off like I did, it is because the economy isn't doing well, and therefore it is just as hard to find your second job as well. So that financial stress is just going to compound even more. But the good news are things are changing. I understand there's a new Skills Future Job Seeker Support Scheme where Singapore citizens and permanent residents who lose their jobs can receive up to $6,000 in temporary financial support over 6 months. So $1,000 a month for 6 months if you meet the criteria. It's not a lot, so it does help, but no one can realistically survive on just $1,000 a month in Singapore. So the principle of self-reliance still remain, and you're still expected to find another job as soon as possible. So now, what can we do? Earlier, I mentioned the importance of investing early and regularly. And besides that, these are the 3 things I'm focusing right now to protect my own wealth. Number 1, your salary won't save you. The first thing I'm doing is to recognize that my salary won't save me. And being employed alone is just not enough. Even if I work hard and I'm a loyal employee, I could and I was laid off, and thus besides investing, I'm looking to developing other streams of income as well, such as consulting, doing my YouTube channel, and having side hustles. The harsh reality is this economy can change anytime, and they will not ask you for your permission before it restructures us into oblivions. Number 2, optimize for liquidity, not status. So I'm playing the money game, not the status game. That means not locking up 100% of my net worth into illiquid assets, such as my home. When buying a home, do not max out your loan eligibility, even if the bank allows you to do so. Keep your housing expense strictly under 30% of your take-home pay so you can preserve your cash flow. Cash flow is ultimately what gives you the safety net when society doesn't give you one. And number 3, invest early and regularly. Earlier, I talked about it, and I know I sound very long-winded about investing. But the brutal truth is that in high-cost Singapore, you simply cannot save your way into financial security anymore. Leaving your hard-earned money in a bank just to earn 0.05% interest, that isn't being safe. That's a financial disaster. So in my opinion, investing is no longer optional. It is a mandatory defense strategy to prevent your hard-earned earnings from being eroded away. So check out today's sponsor, Longbridge, using my link below to kickstart your own investment journey. So there you have it. Singapore can be very expensive and harsh, but I hope that my story can inspire you to do better and be more resilient. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button and subscribe. Till next time, thank you and take care.